Hey guys, it's Crossroads here. Today I wanted to talk to you about Palantir. Some of you may know, most of you may know, it is by far my largest position. I have taken some gains. At one time, my portfolio was 90% Palantir back in 2022. And I must say that I've done pretty well with it. But Palantir has dropped quite a bit. Let me show you what I'm looking at here. We can see that Palantir is actually still way up. You can see where it's at year to date, but it has dropped more than 10% in regular day trading. At one time, it was down about 15% total, including overnight action. That's recovered just a little bit. And by the time this video posts and you're watching it, who knows? It might have bounced back already. But the question is, since this is the biggest drop since the yen carry trade intraday, which was back in August, and if you combine the overnight action, just one of the biggest drops that they've had in a year, what exactly is going on? First, what I think is going on is Palantir had really run up. You can see the RSI right here, and it is certainly was overheated by quite a bit and consistently. And it really has been trading well above its RSI for most of the time. There have been some pullbacks, which have been helpful and have reset the RSI. But once it's above 70, that's pretty overheated. When it's trading at 80, even for a raging bull market and a quality company, it's just wildly hot. And so whenever there's a bit of a pullback, what happens is when you have this kind of a run up, you have people in a stock for a variety of reasons. Not everybody is a long-term investor like you or I. Perhaps some of the people watching are traders. And when you're on massive gains and you're taking massive gains, you tend to put what's called stop losses to protect some of those gains. The higher you run, the faster you run, typically the tighter that stop loss is. And so a day like this that maybe would have normally gone down maybe 5% on the news begins to trigger some of those stop losses. People take profits, which triggers other stop losses, and people take profits, which again, well, you know the rest of it. So I think that that's part of the reason why the stock price action is falling. But let's go to why it's actually falling. There's two pieces of news. Now, the first one of these is that the Pentagon or Donald Trump actually announced that he would like the Pentagon to actually cut 8% of their budget over the next few years. Now, of course, Palantir is both a governmental play and also commercial. It's U.S. commercial. It's growing the fastest, but government is no slouch, especially on the U.S. side. So an 8% cut, it seems like that the market reacted to that thinking it was very bearish for Palantir, whereas Palantir is just a small percent of the Pentagon's budget. And if Donald Trump is calling on the Pentagon to become more efficient with those funds, guess what software that they're at least in part going to be using? You guessed it. That's Gotham Technology from Palantir. So I don't think that Palantir is going anywhere in terms of these large contracts with the US government. These are always for multi-years anyway. It helps the government be a lot more efficient. And I think that the reality is that Palantir will continue to grow quite well. Perhaps there's just a little bit of a headwind there since they're not doing unrestrained spending. But overall, this, I think, is a good thing for our country, a good thing for the Pentagon. And if it's not an amazing thing for Palantir, it's not really that bad at all. Not warranted, not worth the drop of price. But keep in mind that massive run up. It's still up about 50% year to date right now, which is pretty incredible. If we end the year up 50% over the year, hey, that's a win in my book. Now, the other big factor, and the reason why I think that there might be even more, is Alex Karp was announced, and this is kind of misleading headlines, as selling. Let me show you something that's kind of funny. This is from Barron's, and there's many others articles like this that have the same thing. They put it in monetary figures, which looks even more scary. 1.2 billion of stock is what Alex Karp plans to sell. And people are like, oh my goodness, is it the end? Obviously, Alex Karp has turned bearish on his own company. And this is the first time that he's ever sold Palantir stock, except, oh wait, what's this now? This is a list of insider sells over the last year. See Alex Karp highlighted in yellow? And some of these are smaller amounts, all automated sells for the most part. There are some exceptions, but for Alex Karp, they're automated. And they're not small amounts at all. So this is not the first time, in case you're new to Palantir, that Alex Karp sold. Palantir has high stock-based compensation. It was one of those things that we could really complain about when it was not growing very fast and not really doing what we thought as far as technology. But when it's growing at 37% year over year, they've earned that. So enjoy, sell those shares. But wait, is it really 1.2 billion? Well, no, Palantir's stock price has fallen, so it's not that. Plus, this type of sell actually requires them to announce in advance. There is a 90 to 120 cooling off day period for executive officers once they announce this to be able to sell shares. So we're actually looking at this happening later in the year, and it will be by the end of the year. Let's take a look at the SEC filings. So first, what I want you to see is we have the SEC filings from last year that they updated. And so we can see that different members of their executive board had listed and had the option through Rule 10b-5-1, which is that prearranged sell rule, to sell at that point, this December 12th, 2023, so more than a year ago, up to almost 50 million shares. That's just for Alex Karp, by the way. And it was, of course, through June 1st, 2025. Did Alex Karp sell all 50 million? No, he did not. And so they amended this, and this came out with their 10K, their annual filing for the SEC. You can search for it. It's on page 115. Look at it yourself. You can look at details. If there's something you don't understand, you can put it in. They actually have an LLM tied to this. It's kind of interesting, but you can put it in, Chat GPT, DeepSeek, something like that, and it'll break down those terms for you. But ultimately, right here, this is the most interesting. You can see Mr. Karp noted there as well, Stephen Cohen. But this is saying the previous arrangement here has been amended. And here, as of December 11th, 2024, we're just finding out because this is the annual filing, that they're amending that. So instead of all of those shares that could be sold, and he already sold a lot of them, it's now about 10 million shares total, which you could sell. Is 10 million shares for Alex Karp less than what he sold last year? Yes, it is. Is the difference between what he sold last year and that maximum amount of almost 50 million shares still less than this 10 million? Yeah. So this allows him to sell just a little bit more shares than he had previously, but it's by no means egregious, especially compared to last year. Just because Alex Karp is selling or anybody else that's an insider is selling, that does not mean that they're bearish on the stock. Keep in mind, look at these price levels at $36, $35, $32, $28. Let's go back even earlier. Well, this is 2023. They're selling in the 15s, 18s, 20s. Stocks that have a lot of stock-based compensation, usually their officers are not making a lot of money as far as salary. And so, as the saying goes, there are many reasons to sell. There's just one reason to buy for insiders. So they could be doing any number of things, diversifying their assets, buying a mega mansion, buying a fleet of yachts. Who knows? And that's their money. They've earned it. So I don't think this is really bearish for Palantir at all. But just because of that massive run up that we had, this is a nice, healthy reset. Palantir absolutely could keep falling. Now, one area that I'm actually targeting, and I'm not a TA whiz, so take this with a grain of salt. Don't read too much in it, but there is a theory out there that a lot of people have. It's the gap fill theory. When you see a big gap up, this is usually from earnings catalysts, but it could be other catalysts as well. They think and say, well, these gaps tend to fill over time. Now, we do see a gap back here for Palantir. I kind of doubt that this 45, 47 gap ever gets filled. It could. If it does, boy, I'm buying that. You can see a gap here in the 30s, probably not going to fill at all. And there's other gaps also previously with Palantir too. It's been on quite a tear. But this gap right here, it wouldn't shock me, especially if we have a bit of a pullback in the market, which I think is imminent here in the next couple of weeks. I don't think it'll be aggressive, but maybe a 5% pullback over a week or two. That could push Palantir somewhere in this range. And so for myself, I'm not changing anything. I have underwater covered calls. Some actually are no longer underwater, which is awesome. Some still are underwater. Those I'll just continue to roll, and I'll take an opportunity with this dip to even get out of some of those contracts if I can. But the fact of the matter is, I'm just sitting pretty. This is a long-term play for me. So I know the quality of the company, and yeah, that's going to keep absolutely falling. If we keep falling and we get to, say, around 55, boy, I'm going to be buying there. we get to that 45 gap, I'm going to be buying very heavily, actually selling other positions to raise more cash for Palantir. On paper, if you look at it through PE, PEG, you name it, looks like it's overvalued there. I don't think so. Now, right now, it is expensive. I wouldn't be buying this step personally. You do you. Let me know what you think in the comments. Is there another reason that I missed why Palantir is falling? Are you buying this step heavily? Are you waiting it to fall to a certain range? And if so, I'm kind of curious what that price target is for yourself. Let me know what you think in the comments. As always, thank you for commenting, subscribing, and as always, happy investing.